Georgia officials started a process last week that could end with the Republican-controlled legislature taking control of elections in the state's most populous county. The state election board appointed a bipartisan panel Wednesday to conduct a performance review of Fulton County's election management. Fulton County is home to Atlanta. It is heavily Democratic and was the target of false claims of widespread voter fraud following the 2020 election. It is now the first county in Georgia to undergo the review process. For more, I'm joined by Mark Niesse. Mark is a Georgia government reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Thanks for joining us, Mark. So explain, how would this performance review actually work?
It's pretty open-ended for now. We will see how it works, but the rules and process of how this will play out still have to be determined. The first step of this performance review happened last week with the state election board appointing these 3 people who will evaluate Fulton County's elections management, but how they do it, how long it takes, and what they'll look at exactly, that's still to come.
Well, we mentioned Fulton County, home to Atlanta, but why was that county chosen to be the first county to undergo one of these reviews?
The reason it was chosen is because legislators from Fulton County, Republicans who live in the county and represent the county, filed a request for it to be reviewed. And this was part of Georgia's new voting law that the Georgia legislature passed earlier this year, that any 2 senators and any 2 representatives from the county may request a performance review, and then that starts the process. So this was envisioned back in this spring, and then Fulton County legislators who live in the northern part of the county, the more Republican part of the county, are the ones that requested it. So they passed the law, and now they have activated it.
So is it clear, Mark, what could prompt the panel to replace the election board?
It's likely that there will be a lot of discretion. And to be clear, the performance review panel will do the investigation, and they will submit a report to the state election board. And that report could include an open-ended number of recommendations. It could be very specific, or they could recommend that the Fulton County Elections Board be taken over by the state elections board. And if so, then the state elections board would decide whether it wants to follow that recommendation. And if so, they would have the power to appoint a temporary administrator that would replace the board of Fulton County, which is a heavily Democratic county, the home of Atlanta, which overwhelmingly voted for Democrat Joe Biden last November.
So you'd have that temporary administrator, let's say, I mean, this is all hypothetical, but so how would elections actually run if that happened?
Well, the temporary administrator would basically be in charge of the duties that a county election board currently does. So that includes deciding on polling places, deciding on staffing and hiring and firing, and ultimately certification of the election. So most of the workers, most of the people who run elections would continue doing their jobs, but the policies that are set at the high level of any county's election office would be handled by this replacement administrator.
So, Mark, you also reported last week that 95% of eligible Georgians are registered to vote. How did the state accomplish that?
It's a really high number, and you can see that just over the last few years, the number of Georgians registered to vote has really skyrocketed all the way up, as you said, to 95% today. It's very likely that the main reason is automatic voter registration. Since 2016, when Georgia started automatic voter registration at driver's license offices, the number of Georgians who are registered has drastically increased. And I think it's just because when you go in to get your driver's license, as the vast majority of voting age Georgians do at some point every 8 years, they are automatically registered to vote unless they ask not to be. And so making it that easy and that automatic resulted in almost everybody who has a driver's license is going to be registered to vote. And of course, there are also voter outreach efforts, voter registration drives that also make it easy to register to vote. But it's hard to get easier than registering at the same time as you get your driver's license, because I imagine many people don't even think about it. They just get their driver's license and next thing they know, they're registered.
Right, because if that default setting automatically has you registering and you have to take action to opt out and not do it, I would imagine, as you say, that would account for a great deal of those people making up that 95% of folks. But it's one thing to get registered. How many people, Mark, are actually casting ballots?
Georgia's turnout is lower than the rest of the country's. Yes, Georgia did have 5 million voters in the November presidential election, which shattered all previous records. But that is relatively high turnout for Georgia. But if you compare Georgia to other states, Georgia is below average in terms of the proportion of eligible voters who actually cast a ballot. So there's certainly some work to do in getting people out to vote once they are registered. But getting them registered is certainly the first step.
All right. Always so much to watch in your state. Mark Niesse. Mark, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Great talking with you.
That does it for today. You can stream Red and Blue Monday to Thursday